The Quiet Season. Chapter 1. Early Winter. Sometimes winter doesn't arrive all at once. Sometimes it sneaks in, a single cold morning, a quiet street before sunrise, a small shiver you ignore because you think it's nothing. That was how it began for Amy. She lived in a small apartment above a laundromat, in a town that pretended to be bigger than it was. Neon signs hummed at night. Delivery trucks rattled down Main Street before dawn. People hurried and apologized and hurried again. Life here had a rhythm, not beautiful, maybe, but familiar. Predictable. Amy worked at a local grocery store, mostly night shifts. She didn't choose nights, nights simply happened to her. They were the shifts nobody else wanted, and she needed the hours. Needed the paycheck. Needed to keep things moving so she wouldn't have time to sit still and ask herself how she was really doing. Her mother had become ill the previous spring. At first, it was just fatigue, long naps, skipped lunches, aches she brushed away with a smile. Then came the doctor visits, the tests, the medicines with names Amy had to write down to remember. And then came the costs. Always more than expected. Always enough to force a choice. Amy learned to stretch every dollar until it felt like fabric pulled too thin. But she didn't complain. That wasn't her way. She moved through her days with quiet determination, like someone pushing a heavy cart uphill because there was no one else to push it. And winter, the real winter, was still coming. Chapter 2. The Night Shift. On nights when the store was empty, Amy found herself paying attention to small things just to stay awake. The hum of fluorescent lights. The click of the produce cooler turning on. The smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakery section long after the bakers went home. She'd walk the aisles, straightening cereal boxes, wiping down freezer doors, talking softly to herself just to hear a voice. Almost done, she'd whisper. Just a few more hours. The city outside felt different at night. Quieter. Gentler, in a way. It was the only time Amy felt the world wasn't rushing past her. Sometimes she imagined someone else's life, not to envy it, just to remember she was still allowed to dream. A house with warm lights. A little garden. A kitchen big enough for a table. A place where she and her mother could sit and have tea without worrying about bills. But those were soft dreams, and Amy wasn't someone who lived in soft things. She lived in now, in what must be done, in what keeps us moving. Just after midnight one Wednesday, she took her break behind the store. Cold air wrapped around her. Her breath hung in front of her like a small cloud. She leaned against the brick wall and closed her eyes for just a moment. That was when she heard footsteps. Chapter 3. The Boy with the Blue Ribbon. She opened her eyes and saw a little boy, maybe 8, maybe younger. His jacket was zipped unevenly. His hat had slipped sideways. He looked like someone who had put on every piece of warm clothing he could find without checking if any of it matched. He held a box. Just an ordinary box, wrapped with a bright blue ribbon that stood out in the dim alley light. He didn't look scared. Didn't look lost. He looked determined. "This is for you," he said. Amy blinked. "For me?" He nodded. "My mom says sometimes people just need a good day." And before she could ask anything, who he was, who his mother was, why he chose her, he placed the box in her hands and hurried away, disappearing around the corner like a little spark that had briefly lit the night. Amy stood there for a long moment, holding the box. The ribbon fluttered in the cold wind. She didn't know what to think. But she took it inside. And she kept working, because that's what she always did. Chapter 4. The Gift. She didn't open the box until she got home. Her mother was half asleep in the recliner, the TV flickering softly. Amy knelt beside her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "I'm back." Only then did she set the box on the small kitchen table. She untied the ribbon slowly. Lifted the lid. Inside was a scarf. Soft. Warm. Clearly handmade, the kind of thing someone knitted with care, one quiet hour after another. A small note lay on top. "You're doing great. Even if you don't see it." Something inside Amy softened, like snow melting on warm skin. She read the sentence again. And again. It had been a long time since anyone said something gentle to her. Longer than she wanted to admit. Chapter 5. Small Miracles. The next morning, she woke earlier than usual. Not out of duty, or worry, or routine. But because she felt something she hadn't felt in months. A reason to step outside. She wrapped the scarf around her neck and walked out into the crisp winter morning. The world had a quiet glow to it, streetlights still on, but the sky showing its first hint of pale blue. The snow on the ground was fresh. Clean. Her boots made soft crunching sounds with every step. She didn't rush. Didn't check the time. She just walked, breathing in the cold air as if it were something she'd forgotten she needed. Sometimes the smallest kindness changes the trajectory of a day. And sometimes, if the day is heavy enough, it changes everything. Chapter 6. A Town of Strangers. Over the next few weeks, winter deepened. Snowstorms rolled through. Icicles grew along the awning outside the laundromat. People hurried everywhere with their heads down, collars raised, hands shoved into pockets. Amy saw faces she'd seen 100 times, neighbors, customers, bus drivers, but something had shifted. She noticed them now. Not just in passing, but with a kind of quiet awareness. A man walking his elderly dog at dawn. A woman standing by the bakery window, warming her hands on a cup of coffee. The mail carrier who always whistled slightly off-key but did it with so much enthusiasm it was impossible not to smile. Maybe they had always been there. Maybe kindness makes you pay attention. One night during her shift, an older woman came in looking tired and frustrated, her shopping list shaking in her hand. Amy walked over. "Can I help you find something?" she asked. The woman sighed with relief. "Sweetheart, you just saved me 20 minutes of wandering." And for the first time in a long time, Amy felt useful. Not just working. Not just surviving. But connecting. Kindness, it turns out, echoes. Even when you don't mean for it to. Chapter 7. The Window Sign. Mid-January brought brutal cold, the kind that freezes eyelashes and makes doors stick. One morning, while walking to the store, Amy passed a shop she rarely noticed, a tiny craft store squeezed between a hardware shop and a shoe repair place. In the window, written in blue marker. "Be kind. You never know whose life you touch." Amy stopped. Stared at the sentence. Her breath fogged the glass. She didn't know why the words struck her so deeply. Maybe because she had lived them. Because a small act, a gift, a sentence, had changed her in ways the boy could never have imagined. She placed her hand on the cold window. Then kept walking. Chapter 8. Her mother's voice. Her mother's health shifted like weather, some days bright, others heavy and unpredictable. On good days, she asked Amy to tell her about work, about customers, about the new scarf. She would touch the fabric gently and smile. "It suits you," she whispered. On difficult days, she said very little, and Amy sat beside her reading from old library books or humming softly. She didn't have a good voice. But her mother never minded. One evening, after a particularly long shift, Amy found her mother awake, sitting quietly. "Mom? You okay?" Her mother looked at her with warm, tired eyes. "I want you to promise me something," she said. Amy sat down. "Anything. When people reach out to you, let them. Don't close your heart just because life has been hard." Amy swallowed. It was the closest her mother ever came to telling her she'd been too strong for too long. She nodded. "I'll try." "Trying is enough," her mother whispered. Chapter 9. The Search. Weeks passed, and Amy found herself thinking about the little boy more often than she expected. Not obsessively, but with quiet curiosity. Where had he come from? Why her? Who taught him that strangers sometimes need light? She asked a few coworkers if they'd seen him. Most said no. One thought she recognized the description, but wasn't sure. Amy didn't need to find him. She only wanted to understand the kindness that had changed her winter. Chapter 10. The Night of the Storm. February brought a snowstorm the town hadn't seen in years. Wind hammered at windows. Power flickered. Streets emptied before sunset. The store manager called Amy. "We're closing early. Roads are getting bad." Amy's shift ended before 8 p.m., a rarity she couldn't remember happening before. She stepped outside. Snow swirled violently, thousands of tiny white sparks flying in all directions. For a moment, the street felt like a blank canvas the world was trying to erase. Then she saw it. A small shape at the bus stop bench. A little figure. A familiar hat. Amy rushed over, her heart tightening. It was the boy. The boy with the blue ribbon. He was shivering, hugging himself, trying to shield his face from the wind. "Aren't you supposed to be home?" Amy asked softly. He hesitated. "My mom, she's working late. I tried to wait inside but they asked me to leave." Amy looked around. The storm was growing worse by the minute. "Come on," she said gently. "You can wait in the store until she comes. It's warm there." He nodded, relieved, exhausted. Chapter 11. Hot Chocolate and Stories. Inside the store, the lights were half off, but the warmth felt like a blanket. Amy found an old employee mug and made hot chocolate from a packet she kept in her locker for long nights. The boy wrapped his hands around it as if he were holding the sun. "What's your name?" she asked. "Evan," he said quietly. "That's a good name." He smiled faintly. Amy waited a moment before speaking again. "Evan, that scarf you gave me. Did your mom make it?" He nodded. "She makes things for people sometimes. She says if you can help someone feel less alone, you should." Amy's chest tightened in a way she didn't expect. "She sounds like a wonderful person." "She is," Evan said. Then, quietly, "she works really hard." Amy didn't ask more. She didn't need to. They sat there for nearly an hour, talking about small things, his school, his favorite animals, the way he liked to build forts out of blankets. He spoke with honesty, without fear, and Amy found herself relaxing in his presence. Kindness, she realized, was not something he learned. It was something he was. Chapter 12. The Mother. When the door finally opened, a woman rushed inside, breathless and covered in snow. She looked like she had run the whole way. "Evan," she called. He jumped up and ran to her. She wrapped him in a tight hug, whispering his name over and over. When she finally looked up at Amy, their eyes met. "You're the one," she said softly. Amy froze. "The one?" "My son, he told me he wanted to give something to someone who looked like they needed a good day. I didn't know who he chose until now." The woman's voice trembled, not from cold, but from gratitude. "Thank you for taking care of him." Amy shook her head. "You two helped me first." The woman reached out, gently touching Amy's hand. "Kindness goes in circles," she said. "You gave it back tonight." They exchanged a long, quiet look, the kind people share when they recognize goodness in each other. Then the woman and Evan stepped into the storm, hand in hand. Amy watched them go until the snow swallowed them. Chapter 13. The season turns. Winter didn't disappear suddenly. It softened. Melted. Grew thin around the edges. One morning, birds returned, hesitant, early arrivals testing the air. A few days later, the first green shoots pushed through the soil along the laundromat wall. Amy felt the change inside herself too. She laughed more easily. Talked to customers without feeling drained. Took her mother on short walks on warm afternoons, both of them bundled in scarves, her mother's faded one, and the blue ribbon one Amy treasured. Life was still hard. Bills still came. Work was still work. But she no longer moved through her days with the heaviness of someone carrying everything alone. Because she wasn't alone. Not really. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one gift, one sentence, one act of kindness, to remind you that the world can still surprise you. Chapter 14. Spring Window. One sunny afternoon, Amy walked past the craft shop again. The blue marker sign was still there, though a bit faded now. Be kind. You never know whose life you touch. This time, Amy smiled. Took out her phone. Snapped a picture. Sent it to her mother with a simple message. We're going to be okay. Her mother replied with a heart. Chapter 15. Full circle. Months later, on the first warm day of June, Amy stepped out of the store during her break. Across the street, she saw a woman struggling with grocery bags and a stroller. People passed by quickly, busy, distracted, unaware. Amy didn't hesitate. She jogged across the street. "Let me help," she said, lifting two of the heavy bags. The woman looked surprised. "Oh, thank you. I didn't expect." "Sometimes," Amy said gently, "people just need a good day." The woman's eyes softened. And in that moment, standing under the warm sun, Amy understood something. Kindness wasn't the scarf. Wasn't the note. Wasn't even the boy with the blue ribbon. Kindness was the thread that connects one life to another. A thread so thin you only see it when someone else pulls on it. But once you feel it, once you recognize it, you never forget the warmth. Chapter 16. The quiet season ends. That night, as Amy walked home, she realized winter had left her with something she didn't have before. Hope. Not loud or dramatic. Not the kind that shouts. But the kind that hums quietly under the skin. The kind that grows like spring grass, slowly, persistently, faithfully. She opened the door to her apartment. Her mother was awake, waiting with a tired but genuine smile. Amy wrapped the scarf around the back of the chair and sat beside her. "How was your day?" her mother asked. Amy thought of Evan. Of his mother. Of the box with the blue ribbon. Of the strangers who became threads in her life. "It was good," she said softly. "Really good." Her mother squeezed her hand. Outside, the last snow of winter melted along the curb. And the quiet season finally came to an end. If this story stayed with you, even just a little, maybe carry that feeling into your own quiet season. Reach out to someone you've been meaning to call. Pick up a book you've been putting off. Take a walk when the world slows down for a minute. Let yourself notice the small, steady things. And if you want more stories like this, well, you know what to do. Share it. Leave a few words. Pass it to someone who might need a calm moment today. Because sometimes the smallest actions echo the longest.